All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Palantir Weekly. We are here on Black Friday. Hopefully, everyone has had a good Thanksgiving, good Black Friday. We're heading into the weekend. Got two Europeans with me who don't give a shit about Thanksgiving, I would imagine,
Or sleep.
or sleep because it's early where they are. But we haven't done a weekly 2 weeks, a week and a half. No, it's been 2 weeks. Or it's been 1 week. I think it's been 1 week. So we're back and we got some stuff to talk about. Mainly, since last week, Palantir got upgraded 2 times to $75. So we'll be discussing that. There's some updates in regards to Palantir's NHS contract that they got a year ago around this time. And then we have a couple other headlines that we'll discuss and keep going from there. Arnie, how are you doing?
Doing great, but I'll tell you, like it becomes even boring when you have a stock that just goes up. Like as an investor, I can't complain, but where is that drama?
Where's that hunger from 2022 that we felt to fight for every cent? And now it's like 66, 65.
Just another $1. Just another $5.
It's another $2 billion in market cap. That's okay.
Yeah, I remember having this conversation with Arnie when Palantir just started like going up and up and up. I'm like, Arnie, I don't like this. Like when the stock was down, I felt comfortable. You know, I could just buy the stock. I was happy. I know I was getting a great deal. Then it just keeps going up, and it's like, oh my god, this is new. I'm not used to this. This is uncomfortable. So yeah, I mean, it's a strange feeling, but we're happy for all the shareholders out there.
It's a good problem to have.
Imagine how irritating it is from outside when you have a Palantir that is recognized and being as a not a good company, like an excellent company. It seems everybody now wants it, but you just see the stock going up. So it's like for holders, it's like business as usual. From the outside, from people who just want it, is that no, please drop. And then you see these guys like this guy who previously was a bull, then became a hater, then started trashing on us, like calling us like invisible pumpers, and now you see like getting crazy. If this stock doesn't come down to 30-40 next summer, I will delete my X account. Everybody's selling inside the company, and this is just one of the hundreds of posts of Palantir is a bubble. Oh, the worst bubble I've ever seen in my life. And it's like, maybe
can we talk about that? Can we talk about that before we get into everything? Basically, all these people on X who are bored are trying to chase attention by claiming Palantir is the biggest bubble ever. What are your guys' opinion? Because you guys have seen these posts. How are you guys interpreting these types of accounts? We'll start with Amir, then Arnie.
Okay, well, first, just a quick comment. I got the biggest top signal in real life. My programmer colleague came to me on Monday and said, Amir, how do you invest in stocks? I'm like, oh shit, it's here. It's here, the top signal, guys. No, about these accounts, it's I've tried to like make fun of them, but the parody blows up because I would like make a parody post. I'm like, oh my god, it's the biggest bubble, and then I will post some like PE multiple or whatever, and then my post blows up. I'm like, what? Come on, guys, no way to this. So we've been trying to do this. If you remember, me and Arnie did a stream where we discussed Chris Patel's criticism of Palantir, where to us, from our point of view, it was kind of evident that maybe he wasn't as informed on the company and business. But these guys are a whole new other level. They have no idea about the business at all. They will open up the S&P 500, sort by P, and they're like, oh my God, bubble. And I posted it yesterday as well. I looked at all the companies in the S&P 500 above $100 billion market cap, and Palantir's PE and price to sales ratio is just like more than double the next one in the list. I mean, it's not even close. And I'm like, yeah, if you look at that and you know nothing about the business, you don't know about the growth potential, about the profitability, about the margin story, nothing about Palantir, then yeah, you will be inclined to go on X and be like, oh my God, biggest bubble I've ever seen. But I think it just stems from being uninformed about the company as a whole. And it's kind of annoying because it's so obvious at this point. The most common one I've seen is just to, throw the intelligent investor into the trash can. I mean, and then it just gets reposted. Like sometimes there's not even text attached to it. There's just the image and like Palantir at 60 and then the image. I'm like, come on, this is just so low effort. Like, do you guys, and you can't even debate them because they're not interested into finding out about the business. So you can't like go to the comments and be like, oh, by the way, it might seem expensive, but, and then you try to reason, because they don't want to be reasoned with. They're just engagement farming. It's Palantir today. In a month, it might be a different company. Like, it just goes in waves. So my approach is just to ignore it and stick to my stuff.
An important question. Did your colleague who was interested in stocks know about Palantir?
No, she doesn't know about stocks at all. She was like, how does it work with a brokerage? I'm like, oh my God, this is
Oh no, you need some exit liquidity, bro. Set them up. Get them into this.
You know, when we
someone's got to buy this shit.
You know, when Anne Marie, 73 years old, goes to her grandkids, like, what's this Bitcoin? I had the same feeling, you know. It's like, oh my God, it's definitely up there.
So it means that we are in a hot market, but until you don't have like people just randomly, hey, do you know about Palantir? What do you think about Palantir?
That hasn't happened to me yet. I haven't had that experience.
Funny enough, I spoke about Palantir at my work because it's the same context. Like, I work in public healthcare. So, of course, like with the NHS stuff and Palantir working in healthcare, like I had some conversation with a colleague. And then a colleague came to me like a month ago. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, my Palantir did really well. I'm like, you bought Palantir? He's like, yeah, I heard you talk about it. I'm like, what the hell? So he like 5x just hearing a conversation like while passing by in the corridor. And then he's like, oh, you do YouTube, you do live streams? I saw you doing a live stream. So I sent my friends to watch the stream. I'm like, what kind of cult am I building here? Like, I have no idea what's going on behind my back, but all these people are hearing about Palantir, watching Palantir streams, and I have no idea. I'm not even pushing this. So it's kind of fun.
You're on YouTube, bro. People are gonna find it. People are gonna, I mean, even if they just did a quick search on Palantir, you're popping up. So I think that's been the crazy thing over the past 2 months. The level of mainstream, I think Lunar said in the chat, it's like that band, that artist you found that was underground, you were listening to them, and now they're selling out arenas. There's a level of the happiness there, but there's also a level of, oh, this like secret I had is gone. And
that's a good comparison.
Yeah, it's a great comparison. And it's $150 billion secret. So it's a pretty I mean, when you reach if any company in the world reaches $100 billion market cap, even 50 billion, the whole world wants to know, what is this company doing? And I think that's happening with Palantir. Well, so, Arnie, go ahead.
Since when we were investing like 2 years ago or even earlier, it was clear that we knew a secret that the people were not accepting to be true yet. No. What is the current secret we are investing in, if there is any?
Well, I think that transitions us into this $75 price target stuff. So let me get started with this, and then I think we'll answer that question in this. Dan Ives, $75. Here's what he had to say about Palantir.
Palantir having a huge year so far, and you just raised your price target on Palantir. So the street's at about $37. You're at $75. This stock's had a big run up. What's going to continue to move this higher?
Look, and the haters will continue to hate, as we know, in terms of the bears on Palantir. They are still underestimating when it comes to the software, the use cases. There's no product out there that matches what I believe what Karp and the team have done at AIP. So I think the enterprise piece, we're talking about something that could ultimately be billions of revenue. So when you actually look at what this means, $75, you're like, oh, it's expensive. I look out 3-4 years from now, could Palantir be the next Oracle, the next Salesforce, the next SAP? That's what I think we're talking about. And that's why, look, the bears will come out of hibernation, talk about valuation, just to start what I view for the Messi of AI.
Palantir.
So I think that starts off the conversation. Arnie, your question was, what is the secret we're investing in? Dan Ives, Mariana, also from Bank of America, Wedbush, they both understood the story back when it was in the teens, both of them raising it to $75. I think Dan Ives' answer to the secret question is that the street doesn't realize the amount of use cases that Palantir software is enabling for enterprises, and I would think Mariana agrees. And because of that, it is theoretically undervalued if those use cases continue to expand. So let's start with you, Amir. What was your raw thought on the $75 upgrade, and what secret do you think we're investing in, if at all, for Palantir?
Okay, I'm gonna comment on this. So give me a minute or two to do this. So first, I want to share my screen. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna play this clip.
This is especially true if you're a professional money manager, right? You have to create that facade of, I think about cash flows, growth, and risk, when all you're thinking about is momentum, mood, and what's everybody else buying. This is especially.
Okay, so that's what I think about the Dan Ives price target. I think it's about momentum, mood, and what everyone else is buying rather than looking at the business as a whole. Because if we look at his reasoning for raising the price target, it doesn't make much sense. Because 4 months ago, Dan Ives put out a $35 price target with the exact same wording. This is the AI, this is the message of AI, all the same talks. 4 months ago, he put out a $35 price target. So did his understanding of the business shift so massively in these 4 months to more than double his expectations for the business? Now, let's acknowledge that it's not based on valuation, but rather a guess of where the price is going. It's a price target with a time frame. So he's estimating where the price will go over X amount of time. Typically, that would be 12 months. But isn't that also like illogical? If you look at where Palantir is currently trading in the 66 or whatever we are right now, it is so expensive. Like if you look within the S&P 500, I mean, there's no real comparable. Palantir is more than double as expensive as the second one into the list on both price to sales and PE. So even raising the price target here based on like guessing where the stock price will go, I think it's pretty far-fetched to try to use that logic as well. So it's not rooted in reality of valuation, because if we look at like reverse DCFs, we've done this previously on his other price targets. We looked at he expects like $100 billion of revenue by 2033 if you would do like a reverse DCF. I mean, so it's not rooted in valuation. It's not rooted in like the logical sense of where should the stock trade in a specific time frame, because it's already so extremely expensive from like a pricing standpoint. So what is he really doing? And I think the Aswad clip really explains that. I think he's just thinking about the momentum, mood, and what everyone else is buying, and that's currently Palantir. So makes sense. Now I want to say, I'm not saying Palantir won't trade at 75. I think it's very I mean, he's been right so far, so who am I to say anything? I think it's very possible that it will trade at 75. What I'm critical of is putting out these price targets without having any real basis for it, because it's difficult to take like it as a credible source when you don't really back it up by anything. If you guys recall, when he put out 35 and then the $50 price targets, he had in his Wedbush report, he said, okay, we got this price target by taking 2027's revenue, and then we put this multiple on it, and that's how we reached the price target. So I made a YouTube video where like I did the math using his numbers. I'm like, you get a $22 price target, not a $50 price target, using this math, then nice. And then the subsequent Wedbush report just removed the math and said like, yeah, we're bullish. This is a messy of AI. I'm like, oh, come on, guys. So yeah,
I'm bullish. Math doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's basically it. So yes, I believe Palantir could very well trade at 75. But I mean, when you put out these price targets and there's not much meat to the bone, I guess is the saying over in the US, then I can't really take it credibly. But that's just my take on Dan Ives one.
Arnie, your thoughts?
Well, you know that I'm a little bit of a psychopath, and I like to reason why should they do this? Like, why should they raise the price target, especially now that no real news emerged apart from the stock entering the Nasdaq stock exchange, so transferring there and potentially being included in the Nasdaq 100, probably just a matter of time. Like, why do now? Why do now that there is no news essentially from the latest updates, which were around the 55. Remember, correct me if I'm wrong, because both of them just raised the price, but the reason probably is the stock just went up. So why should they upgrade that? And imagine the situation where they are in. So they're both now the leading analyst in terms of analysts that cover the story, understood the story, and essentially they are the bull analyst that got the recognition from the street as being right on Palantir.
And real quick, what this means is they get paid fat bonuses. So for those that don't know the analyst business, they're not allowed to own Palantir. They can't make money if Palantir goes to 75. But the clients that pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for their research report, if you say Palantir to 50 or 30 in the beginning of the year and Palantir to 75, there's a very nice bonus that they get. So that also could be an incentive in terms of them getting it to 75.
So remember that as I always say, when you work in this kind of bank and you are an analyst, your job is not to put money to work, but to get fees from asset managers that are your clients. So essentially, they are influencers in the professional space, even if they will never say that, but that they are attention grabbers, okay? They need the fees from asset managers that are generated by trading, by paying the research, by paying one-on-one meeting, events, stuff like that. So if the stocks you cover blow up, like in the positive sense, and you are the star analyst, you are essentially an influencer that needs to surf that wave. So how do you keep the attention on if the stock keeps rising? Well, you raise the stock price again, because imagine, like, what if they didn't do that? So let's imagine the scenario where I have a price target of 55. Okay, great. The stock reaches 55 and clients call you and like, hey, Mariana, hey, Danives, like, I'm interested in Palantir, but why should I buy it now? And well, it is already at fair price, but it is an interesting story. Just follow with that. Like, trust me, like, even if now you'll get just market return or underperform, don't worry, the stock is fine. Like, the company is cool to follow. There are Amit, Emir, that are nice guys to follow. No, that doesn't work. Like, since your business is making fees for the bank, what do? You try to find a way to make the story appealing again. How do you do that? Let's give some upside. Like, there is nothing more frustrating for a portfolio manager who just wants to deploy some cash, and now everybody wants to deploy cash into AI. If you call an analyst and this analyst, oh, no, you just lost the train. Get ahead for your market return. No, you try to make the story appealing. That's the work of a sell-side analyst. Why sell-side analyst? Because their job is to sell the idea.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just to add to that, how much are you seeing Danives now? Palantir is a hot stock right now. It's absolutely, as Arnie mentioned, it's absolutely in his interest to be super bullish and be like at the front page of everything Palantir related. Look how much media he's doing. He's like make multiple appearances on CNBC within the same week to talk about Palantir. Now, the reason I said what I said is, do you think he would put out a $75 price target if Palantir was trading at 30? I don't think so. So that's why I think it's not necessarily rooted in anything related to what the business is putting out there or valuation per se. I just think it's just about the mood and momentum rather.
I think so too. Realistically, put in the chat if anyone thinks if Palantir was 30, would they have been upgraded to 75? I think there's no way in hell anyone would be saying 75 if we were at 30. And granted, that's part of the business, right? Like, as the stock goes up, you kind of have to adjust. So I get it. But I agree with you, Amir. This definitely felt like a momentum-based upgrade from both of them. Mariana, I didn't expect. This one also, I mean, I love Mariana. Arnie and I have met her. Super smart person. But this one was weird. I read through the report. I sent you guys the report. You got to read it. I didn't see anything new in that report. that wasn't there at 55. She's increasing her government growth estimates and commercial growth estimates, but it's not like dramatic increases, right? It's just like a little bit of an increase. And then, as Arnie said, you put some multiples on it and then you get a new dollar amount. So it does feel like both of them are trying to get ahead of the story. But here's the next question to both of you. Arnie, you can start with this. Are they issuing 75 to get ahead of the story because they really think the story's taking off, even if it has nothing to do with like the actual growth rates? And they know people will just buy it because it's going up?
With a promise that we can't know, we can just speculate. And since we don't have like, we are not paid by any bank or whatever, like we can be more fair, like we more transparent with our views. And personally, I think so. Like I believe the monetary incentive is too high. The reputation that you can get as being a standard analyst on the stock of the year, we need to be fair in recognizing that when you work in a bank like that, you are just assigned to, you need to cover these 20 stocks. And if it happens, well, I'm talking more of the Mariana case, because the Knives, I think he has more choice. Like, I want to cover this, I want to cover that. But for the case of the regular analyst, like Mariana, you're just assigned a sector, this cluster of 20 stocks. And if it happens that in these 20 stocks, you have like the stock of the year, like you have like the golden career opportunity. But if you're just assigned trash companies that nobody will ever care, or if you're just assigned Italian equity that nobody cares, you can be like the best analyst in the world, but nobody will ever care because there will be no star moment for you to go on TV and talk. So like for their reputation as analysts, like this is the golden opportunity and they need to surf the story. Now, it is also true that since they have like direct touch, like a direct sensitivity with the money that is deployed, when they see like increasing like a spiking interest into the story, they can raise the target, because it's like, imagine if your clients keep calling, it's like, okay, you are more confident in rising your revenue forecast, right? So it's like, you know that if you rise a price target, you can also help influence the target, but you have already the information that you know that you have like all these huge clients ready to deploy capital if they see a good reason why.
Yeah, I would agree. Amir, I'm curious your thoughts on this as well, because in the Bank of America report, Mariana even says, hey, NASDAQ inclusion is a catalyst that could result in share appreciation. So she's kind of just telling her analysts, look, this could happen, and this could be an S&P 500 moment where the stock goes higher just purely based on the idea that institutions are buying. Is that a reasonable enough argument to raise the price target on a stock to you?
I mean, probably. You know, I mean, the momentum is there. So if you're gonna bet against Palantir at this time, I think there's a lot of positive catalysts, and the market has truly shown that they're kind of detaching Palantir from valuation. So yeah, I think it's very reasonable to put it into report. Now, Mariana, compared to Dan Ives, actually puts out their numbers clearly in their report, and they try to reason with math. She specifically cites EV sales growth for reaching her price target. So I, similarly to what I did with Dan Ives, historically, I took her numbers and I did the math, and I get her old price target doing her own math with EV sales growth. So I get something like 55 using her own numbers, not 75, which is Bank of America's previous numbers. So I'm like, are these guys purposely like messing up the math in their reports, just hoping no one will check, or what? Am I stupid, or what's going on? But still, look, no one can deny. Like, I think what Arnie said makes perfect sense. They need to ride this wave. You don't get these opportunities often. They've been bullish Palantir from the start. This is not like out of nowhere. They're like, oh crap, the stock is doing well. Time to get on the hype train. No. Mariana has been the only bullish Wall Street analyst like since the like single digits, and Dan Ives joined pretty early, and he's been bullish on the company for long. So I don't think anyone can deny that those two in particular have a better understanding of Palantir's business than anyone else on Wall Street. And they've been correct so far. So I think there's some credibility to be lent to that. But yeah, I think most of this right now is rooted in just the hype cycle around Palantir. I mean, I even got into, well, not an argument, but everyone probably is familiar with Keith Fitzgerald. He's also taken this opportunity to put out a $100 price target because it has to be higher than everyone else to get attention, right? And he's been on various media to talk about that. So I was like, okay, Keith, that's a very interesting price target. Could you elaborate? How did you come up with that? And the reply I got was, it's a competitive advantage not to disclose our reasoning. It's a like proprietary method. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like, you just put out a number and then you can't even reason or explain a single thing about it, and it's like proprietary. Like, I mean, I can make a reverse DCF. I can see what the price implies. Like, there's no secret here. And so I try to challenge that a bit. Like, he's a nice guy. I think everyone knows Keith. He's a really nice guy, smart guy. He's been like helping retail investors. He puts out like this free newsletter. He does a lot of good. But I was like, okay, I gotta push back here because this makes no sense to me. So I was like, okay, what do you mean proprietary? And how is it against your interest to disclose what you see for this business? Like, how do you lose competitive advantage? Because it's not like Wall Streeters are gonna like, okay, everyone delete your Excels. We're gonna do what Keith is doing right now. No one's gonna like abandon whatever they're doing just to copy paste your work. Like, this is not school where like, hey, can I look at your homework? Like, no, people have their own clients. So I was like, okay, isn't it in your interest that people see the same things you do and to have Palantir stock price appreciate to your price target? So what are you actually losing by trying to reason around this $100 price target? He's like, no, I can't do that. I'm like,
well, I think that's
so what's the reason of even putting out the price target? Like, there's no weight behind it at all. And now Mariana does try to reason about it. Like, she puts out some catalyst, she talks about it, she clearly understands it. But still, the price target doesn't make sense from like a valuation standpoint. Dan Ice, similarly as we've been talking about, he does the same. So I think there's just a lot of attention grabbing at these levels from various sources, and not a lot of it is rooted in what I would say reality, to put it harshly. But again, I want to say this again. I think it's very possible that Palantir reaches $75, and they're both correct again. They've been correct every single time, and I think there's a high possibility it happens again. But what I'm saying is that you can't really justify it or reason around it like from a numbers perspective, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I agree with you. I do think there are various people putting out numbers without backing them up, and I think that can get very dangerous in certain instances, especially when the excuse is that they have specific frameworks to develop a price target that are not allowed to be open sourced. I think that's very dangerous when you start saying stuff like that, because it means, I mean, that's just not true, right? Unless you know something about the company that we don't know, which means that's a bigger question, right? What do you know that no one else knows, right? So I agree, and it's not just some of the people in mainstream media, but you got random YouTubers making videos saying Palantir is going to go to the moon. Look, that stuff is scary. That stuff's never good to see. Now, so far, Palantir has held up, and I think it has a good shot of normalizing 55 to 60, but it is getting a little attention grabby. Arnie, your thoughts on kind of the media environment?
Well, it's just what I said previously. Like it or not, analysts try to become like the influencers, because that is a life changing opportunity as an analyst to serve that. Personally, like if I have to speculate, I'm not sure Mariana is like super happy. Like for how I met her and for how I listen to her, how she reasons, she's more conservative. Like she likes obviously to be positive on something that she appreciates, she understands, like Palantir. I felt this move was more like that kind of move you make because you get the pressure from above. Because
I agree. Because Mariana doesn't do interviews. She's not like Dan Ives, so she has no kind of like celebrity status to gain from this.
And
And okay, sorry, Ari.
I heard the stories like directly from analysts who are covering that moment before the great financial crisis. So before like no, this was like in the 2000s, early 2000s, where you had tech in the US, but like in Italy, you had like the crazy moment where telecom companies were supposed to be like to conquer the world. And essentially, they were like the big tech of that time. And you heard the stories of analysts that just needed to keep rising the target. Because why? Because the bank needed that. Like, imagine like the opposite scenario. Like Mariana starts suddenly thinking, oh, like maybe we've gotten too far. Like she has no real way back. Even like as creators, like it is even hard. Let's say tomorrow I wake up and I say, guys, this stock price makes no sense, but the real fair value is like $20. It's not the case. But imagine like if you are very attached to something and then boom, like it is first hard.
But Arnie, the only difference is I think because we're content creators and we have the freedom to just speak, we've said that. I mean, before earnings, when we were at, what was it, $36 or whatever, we all said, even if they do 30% growth, like you, me, Matt, Amir, we all thought this thing was going to tank because we just like at $40, it felt crazy, right? Now we're at 65 and we're trying to justify it, but it's not like we had to put out a price target to our institutional clients saying that it's expensive. So I feel like we had a little bit more freedom than Dan and Mario.
Well, we have more freedom. Absolutely. Like people in a bank are slaves. Like it or not, they're well paid. They have a fancy life, but they're slaves. Like the moment they go against the bank, poof, you can be substituted. So you have an immense pressure to just do what the banks do. Even if in the report, like they write explicitly, this is the opinion of the analyst. But is I like to read the disclaimers.
The fine print.
There was something like this report reflects the personal opinion of the analyst. No, that's not true. Like that's the opinion of the bank, because the bank needs to make fees. Like even if Mariana is like 100% correct, but the bank doesn't make fees, the bank is not happy and Mariana can be fired.
Yeah. Amir?
Yeah, I agree with everything Arnie said. I also want to say that I don't think it's a coincidence that their price targets are equalized now. So this is not the full history because Mariana's been around since like single digits, as I mentioned. But this is like the development of the price target war, one could say, where they each one up each other. So I made a previous version of this before they raised their price target to 75. So I had an earlier version. And then I commented like, Mariana is a great. I was like, I titled the tweet, "The Battle of the Bullish Wall Street Analysts" or something like that. It's like, yeah, I really respect Mariana. She's really smart. So I commented, but you're never going to let her have the upper hand, right? So I don't think it's a coincidence that they are both equalized now on their price target. I think it's like in their best interest, like, okay, I want to look good, you want to look good, but we can't just keep one-upping each other into infinity. So I think it came to like some kind of agreement.
This looks like the analyst cartel.
Yeah, and I also want to say that I don't know if I disclosed this, but I actually made a tweet a while back that got a lot of views and likes on X. I sent something like, no one believed in it except Mariana. And then it hit, I think it's like $55 or $60, like a couple of weeks back. And it got so many likes and views. I was like, our favorite analyst, Mariana, was the title. And then I screenshotted that and I sent it to Mariana. And she was like, oh my God, I really appreciate you guys. And I'm so happy that you find my reports useful and stuff like that. So she knows that she has like garnered some kind of following on X now for being bullish. But I also want to say one final thing on the topic before we move on. If I'm completely honest, following Palantir for all these years, I think there's a real possibility where we are all wrong, and people like Dan Ives and Mariana, they might be bullish without realizing how prosperous the future really is for Palantir. Because if we take all our expectations and move back like 6 months, 12 months, all our expectations are increasingly getting higher and higher for Palantir. The more we learn about the business, the higher our expectations. And if you go back 1 year, like, okay, what do you think about Palantir's future? And then you ask yourself that now, it's quite reasonable that your projections 5 years out are completely different to the bullish side, because we're seeing them execute so well. So I also think there's this alternate reality where Palantir is really going to outperform all our expectations. So it goes back to your question, like, are they seeing something we aren't? Maybe they aren't, like, maybe they can't necessarily put it into numbers, but they might be like giving a premium to the fact that this company is just so special and executing, and no one really gets it. So we're just like
betting on the potential almost.
Yeah, and I think that's a real possibility. I think if you ask us a year from now, I think it's going to be even more prosperous, and then 75 might seem too low. Who knows? But yeah, I think that's also a possibility.
Yeah,
but of course we can't like we can't like anchor our views on something we don't know about. We have to comment about the situation as we see it currently, and from that point of view, 75 is a bit stretched.
Yeah, and I think that goes to Chad's comment right here. The thing you guys don't have is doing customer sentiment visits to see ground truth where Dan does. I think that's a really fair point. I mean, Dan is talking to a lot of customers constantly, even though I know a lot of people don't love his like reports because he's not like as detailed and stuff. But at the end of the day, if the customers are saying this is what is actually creating value, the only thing he has to do as an analyst is think, okay, can Palantir provide that value to other customers? Because every customer I talk to keeps saying they're getting a lot of value from Palantir. And if the answer is yes, then I think to him, it's just a growth story, which is why he's so like lackadaisical around valuation, because he's not thinking about valuation at this stage of their infancy of the potential S-curve they're on. He's just thinking, do people like the product? Will they keep coming back? Will they keep paying more? And if the answer is yes, stock probably goes higher as they just continue to grow.
Well,
Arnie, how about you, Amit? Are you buying at these levels? I saw you buying Robinhood at all-time highs. So are you also not all-time highs, but I mean after rallying hundreds of percent? So are you also buying Palantir after rallying hundreds of percent?
But see, I'm buying Robinhood because I still think it's cheap. Palantir, I do not think it's cheap at 150 billion. I mean, I think it's blown every bull's mind. I mean, we were expecting $70 maybe in 2028.
I mean, even the company was like remember that SARS argument? Like
yeah, I was gonna say.
I mean, those are tools that the company provided to employees, expecting I don't remember exactly what was the average year for this.
I think 2029.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So like it was a tool expected to be useful in like years from now, and then boom. But this connects a little bit with what I was willing to say. Like, can you share the screen a little bit? Like, I just wanted to highlight like 2 sentences that made me think. Essentially, how Mariana arrived to that target was applying a higher multiple than previously. So rather than just applying 1x EV sales to growth of 1x as previously, just a little bit of context. When we were at the bottom, she was using like a 0.607. Now she says, okay, no, Palantir's story is so cool that it deserves a 1.2 of this multiple, where essentially if you rise the sales forecast combined with a higher multiple, then you get like an explosive valuation. But at least she says, look, on the government side, we are confident because Palantir is facing a Knudsen carp moment, essentially saying, look, in the same way, the US needed this guy called Bill Knudsen to help build the arsenal required to win World War III. By the end of the war, the US produced aircraft at 10x the 1939 rate. Essentially, Palantir is seen as that company that helps the government becoming ready for a potential war with China or Russia or whatever. So since Palantir has this very strong reputation, proven capabilities on the battlefield, not on paper, not on PowerPoint, but on the battlefield, Palantir has this high standing, this big opportunity to essentially help the government shape the future spending of defense in line with what Palantir is providing. It has been working 20 years to reach this point, and now finally this opportunity can unlock. So for this reason, she sees an upgrade in the 3-year growth target to 39% from 24%. Keep an eye on that. Like right now, we are growing at 30%. So this growth rate that Mariana sees is already like a deceleration from the current rate. But this applies also to the commercial side, where essentially she says we are raising the target from 32 to 34 because we think Palantir is supposed to dominate as companies turn into AI software and grow margins, rather than through scale with fixed asset. So all the competitive dynamic in the commercial space all relies on being competitive on the software side, which is what Palantir provides. The complexity of Palantir ontology is invaluable to operationalize generative AI, as it embraces the security, government, data robustness as challenges. So for this reason, we see a long runway ahead. So essentially, if you raise the target, like the revenue estimates on one side, the revenue estimates on the other side, then you have operating leverages. Like there is a story to be said that if this is true, Palantir can deserve this strong price target. But I wonder, is there a scenario where these targets can be smashed, where rather than seeing like a 30% growth, which so far, since we were traumatized by the slowdown of 2022, where we even saw like a 15% growth, which was half the current growth rate, like, is there a possibility that the AI wave is so strong then even these expectations, which are in line or very strong, like with the current present, like sustaining a growth rate of 30% as you grow, and now we are at more than $2 billion revenue. Like,
well, let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say 30% growth goes back to 20 in 2 years. Like, what happens at that point?
Well, say goodbye to the stock. Essentially, if you are invested in the stock, you are betting that the future will be better than what we are currently seeing with Mariana and the knives. So, in other words, if the revenue starts becoming like 20%, the stock is dramatically, it's essentially over. Like because this is a story stock. Okay, like the story component of the equity story is so strong because it's not only the free cash flow you generate now, it is all backed on the free cash flow that you will generate in 10 years from now. So if Palantir is seen as a successful story and the numbers back it, it deserves a very strong valuation. If Palantir is told to be a successful story, but then you show a slowdown to like 20% growth rate, in the short term, you are essentially done. Like you see like a snowflake, like until they were able to show again, hey, we're growing again. Like the stock was not appealing because you don't buy a growth stock if it doesn't grow.
Amir, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if it goes back to $20 growth rate, then everyone can say goodbye to their Lambos and hello to their local Walmart parking lot behind the container, because you're gonna need it to survive. No, but I have to say, still, her growth rates that we looked at there, they're still below mine. like essentially from a growth perspective in terms of actual numbers, I think all of these guys are way too bearish for Palantir. That's why you get this association with, because my fair intrinsic value for the stock is around $48-50 right now. These guys are putting out $75 price targets while raising like their growth rates by like 2% to like I think her overall growth rate for 2026, like up until 2026, it's below 30% still. Like she still has Palantir below 30% for next year. And then she goes up to 32.5. That's more bearish than I am, but still she puts out this $75 price target. So I just want to share, just give me a second, like that. Okay, no. Okay, I'm going to share screen quickly. And it might be, I said her math was wrong. Let's just look at it quickly together, and then maybe I'm completely stupid because I've never seen EV sales growth. I approached it from how you would do price earnings growth. So just quickly. So we have the EV, we have her sales estimate, which is 4.8 billion in 2026, and we have her growth rate for 2026. Now, if you apply, I don't know if this shows up on stream, but there's 1.2 times, and then times the EV divided by the sales multiplied by the growth. And you get essentially her old price target of 53, not 75. So regardless how I view it, I can't really get to her price target. So
well, I think it makes sense because when she increased it from 1.0 to 1.2, even when I was reading it initially, I didn't do the math like you, but I was wondering how the fuck did you get 75 by raising it?
Yeah, and raising like, okay, we're gonna raise government revenue by 2%, but we're gonna increase the like stock expectation by 40%. I'm like, how does this make sense? You know,
I would much rather them come out and have a 1-sentence report and be like, "We like the stock," like because that's basically what they said. To be honest,
Emir, can you put, just for curiosity, rather than a plain 1.2, 1.24444, like something that
you need to? I checked that. You need to put the 1.7 to get 75.
Wow.
So it's not even close to that 1.2 multiple that she's talking about. So I have no idea. Like I don't know, are these like lagging like one report?
Wait, do you think she's factoring in management buying back a ton of shares and that doesn't matter?
Look, the only variable that I didn't account for is EV being expected EV of 2026. But I'm like, even if I increase the EV by like 50 billion, it's still not even close. So I don't think that's the cause either. So I have no idea actually. I might even like email her to see like, hey, I read this. This is how I approach it. Could you clarify what you mean? Maybe she'll reply. Maybe she'll like, who the hell is this guy? Who cares? And don't reply. But
why is he reading the numbers? Why is someone reading the numbers?
Nobody needs the numbers now.
Look,
please don't.
and I acknowledge I might be completely stupid not understanding how to calculate this. So if you are watching this and like this guy has no idea, I will admit that yes, I have no idea. Please tweet me or like write in the comments how this is actually calculated, because no matter which way I approach it, I can't get to $75. I even asked all the AI agents out there, not agents, LLMs. I tried Grok, OpenAI, I tried Perplexity, I tried my local Amazon one that you can download and run locally. I tried everything. No one can reason with the EV sales growth. There are no like numbers on the internet like how you should calculate that. So I think it's like they made it up. I don't know. Guys, let me know what EV sales growth is.
Well, from this picture, we see graphically what essentially Mariana tries to show us with her multiple. She says, okay, Palantir is better than the government contractors. You see these small numbers around here in the corner that typically have a lower valuation, and the growth at a reasonable price. And she showed on this left on this right chart, like the key software players, and Palantir is above all of them in terms of this multiple because it is just better. So it is a cooler stock. It has a better growth profile combined with a margin profile. So that's the reason why Palantir is ahead of here. Now, the criticism I could give is since you use this multiple EV to sales to growth exactly to incorporate already that superior growth estimates so that you can essentially normalize the stock to the growth rate. But that is also true that Palantir has also the free cash flow profile that is very, very, very strong. But again, the very strong criticism that I could give, that is why, in terms of like being a rigorous analyst, that you need to check at least as far as I was trained, that okay, you show a price target of 75, but you always need to check with another method like the free cash flow model, just to say, okay, does this number actually make any sense when you try to reverse engineer that stock, that price? Like, it is true that we're talking about a disruptive company, potentially in 1 year, 2 years from now, if this momentum keeps spinning, then maybe we will be talking about 50% growth rate being absolutely the normal. But at that point, I would rather have a report on trying to understand what could drive that 50% growth rather than just putting a random number there. And an important observation that I think is worth saying is like this valuation method of just slapping a number there is probably not including, and actually no, Emir showed that is not including, because it is already impossible to get, the number of shares increasing. And there are two dynamics there. Like on one side, the share count just keeps increasing normally. On the other side, at least credits to Mariana that she wrote it probably for the first time, something that we discovered months ago about the SARs, so the stock appreciation rights, that is essentially a bonus to employees. If the stock rises above a certain target of 50, we already get there, up to 70. That creates, on one side, the acceleration of accounting that number. So as a stock-based compensation expense, so there is one strong sentence that imagine like you are an analyst and you will see like we maintain these adjusted EPS unchanged at 38. However, 120 million SARS expense will result in unprofitable GAAP operating income and muted GAAP net income gain.
Wait a second. So that means Q4, they're expecting her to be, Palantir to be not profitable because of this? Wait, hold on. I didn't read this part. If they're expecting, and this is legit, so this is the SARS expense that legally they have to recognize even if the employees don't exercise the SARS because the stock is held above a certain level. And if that's the case, and the headline on February whatever is Palantir is unprofitable, I feel like we're going to get a great dip opportunity, right? Like if that actually happens. Like if we miss EPS because of this, and it doesn't matter, this is a legit reason to miss it, but no one's going to care, right? They're just going to see.
Personally, I see that as a bull case for me as an investor.
Me
if
too.
people invest like, oh my God, like imagine if this happens and the bears when will be like, oh my God, we were so right. This company is trash. But meanwhile, like this is just a temporary stuff.
Well, so if Palantir does not get more income from operations, meaning the actual business deals, to accelerate past this $120 million, because they only did $145 million of net income last quarter, we're not going to be profitable. It'll be a stupid reason, but
I haven't done the math on this, but
or we'll at least miss estimates. We might be profitable. Right.
Yeah, I read that and I just disregarded it because I don't see a world where Palantir, like if the expected expense that they will incur is around 120 million for the quarter. There's no way that Palantir won't be GAAP profitable regardless. I mean,
No, they'll be profitable.
It makes no
but
sense.
They'll
No,
be
but she
profitable.
wrote that they will be unprofitable. She wrote that in the report.
Well, it all depends on how you recognize in the accounting the stock-based compensation. There was a sentence from the CFO Glazer saying that, due to market conditions, we will recognize more stock-based compensation in the last quarter.
So hold on, here's the question. Does the SARS count as stock-based comp, or does it count as legit taking away from net income?
I would include that in stock-based compensation. Like that doesn't affect the non-GAAP operating income. So like from the operation side, because it's before stock-based compensation. But since these are essentially like stock options that are given, are not stock options, but because it is like a cash settlement, but it's still something that since now they could be exercised, they become more valuable. In accounting terms, you need to adjust that to new numbers, so they become more expensive, and this adjustment needs to be recognized in accounting before it becomes an expense. And since the stock appreciated already a lot up to September, I don't remember exactly what was the stock price in September, end of September, but it was already relatively high. The company probably will need to incur into this expense. I had this feeling, but Mariana essentially confirmed that the fact that the stock went up, these premiums needs to be recorded as a higher expense. It means that you have like a hit on the stock-based compensation, which in turn doesn't affect the free cash flow from operations, but it affects the net income, and it will affect the cash pile if these SARs are executed. So that's why, like, combining everything is like, she put that as a sort of safety guard, saying, "Look, I told you." Like, if
that could be a reason why we're seeing insider selling. I mean, imagine we get a headline in February where Palantir misses EPS by 3-4 cents, just like Robinhood in Q3 of 2023. They missed EPS by like 11 cents for a regulatory fee. So they had to pay $100 million for something stupid. But the stock went from, remember, Arnie, it went from 13 to 7. Like no one cared. They saw the headline. Even this time, it went from 30 to 23 a couple of weeks ago.
Everything was perfect, but that line.
And they missed EPS in Q3 Robinhood because of another regulatory fee. So if Palantir misses EPS, unless like they get a big contract, and that big contract they can recognize and blah, 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 what's something, if they miss EPS because of this, which I think we definitely need to do some digging on, it doesn't matter what the narrative is at 150 billion, it's probably going to fall, right? Like just historically from what we're seeing.
Yeah, I think pretty much anything negative surrounding the like it's so propped up now. I think anything negative can catapult it lower. I have to say, just like Mariana did here, she tried to make some estimates surrounding this. I haven't looked at it at all. Perhaps I should do the math around this. But yeah, if Wall Street don't adjust their expectations, because these are like static things. People know about SARS. They know about where the stock price has gone. Like, if they don't bake that into their EPS expectations, then it's just Wall Street being bad. Like the analysts aren't doing their jobs. Like this is out there. Like you should know this. Mariana knows about this, but
Amir, to your point, that's what happened with Robinhood. They had a expense around the customer match incentives they were giving. Analysts did not factor it in, because if you did factor that in, you would not have a 650 million revenue target, and Robinhood came in at 637. You would have taken it down to like 630, 635. Analysts are dumb. Like they don't adjust their shit.
So
right?
What happened to the stock? Like it regained everything it lost, right? And
but then Trump won, and then
because you had the feedback narrative that was very positive. So essentially, it's like, okay, yeah.
The
It is
point is,
bad,
it was
but-
it was a stupid reason for it to fall. I bought that dip. A lot of people bought that dip, and they did well, which happens in the market, right? Irrational dips. This would be an irrational dip. This is not Palantir's fault if they miss on EPS for this reason. But to your point, Amir, if the analysts don't match up their EPS expectations to the inevitability of this SARS expense, and they all know about it, otherwise you're not a really good analyst, right?
Yeah.
Then that could be bad.
Look,
Can you share the report just quickly? I just want to make sure I read that correctly. Will
They
result in
already-
unprofitable gap operating income. So the operating income was 113,
oh,
and the
operating income.
yeah. So if you look at the 120 expected, Palantir grew their like the difference between this quarter and the last quarter is essentially 8 million. So if you add 8 million again, and I think the operating margin was kind of like, I was kind of disappointed by the operating margin for Q3. So if we assume that they get back to like a healthy operating margin expansion, like I was expecting to begin with, if they add like even the same poor ratio that they did for Q2 to Q3, they would still clear this $120 hurdle and still be operationally profitable. So I don't see, I can't make sense.
But you
of
see,
her,
you see
like,
what she says. You see what she says, and a muted gap net income gain.
Yeah,
That
of
means-
course, because it affects the net income after the operating profits.
No, but that's my
of
point.
course.
If she says a muted, then that means she says they're going to be profitable, but it's going to be a very small level of quarter over quarter growth.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
from,
interest. The interest on the treasury that goes on, like typically for a business that operates, you would find that the operating income is higher than the net income. But for Palantir, that's been reversed the past couple of like year and a half or 2 years because of the net income. The interest from treasuries. Now, still, I can't. Okay, I understand it will be muted. Yes, I can buy that. I don't buy there will be gap unprofitable on a operating income basis. Like I can't make that math work. I still think they will be operationally profitable. I don't think they will lose that. Now, imagine this. Palantir, of course, is aware of this. Like they have an accounting team. They know what they've done. They know they have these incentives out there. They know what the stock price is done. Definitely. Do you believe that they will let a quarter incur of unprofitable operating margins? I don't think so. I think, like, of course, they can't like pace their own employees. Like, guys, chill with exercising this for a while. Like, pace yourself.
You can't say that to employees. They can't.
No, they can't. But I mean, like, they can't do it legally. But I mean, I don't know. I would be pretty surprised if like all the employees are like, okay, fuck this, let's head for the doors. And then just
I think they will still be operationally profitable, but it will be a muted gap net income gain, as Mariana says. This is the first time I'm finding out about this live, so I haven't. This is actually big news to me. And if that's the case, I'm telling you, based on my experience with Robinhood, analysts are fucking stupid. They will not get rid of their expectations because of some idiosyncratic SARS expense that they have to go deep to find. They're going to say, oh, we expect Palantir to grow at 9 cents of EPS in Q4. Palantir's going to come in with 2 cents if this shit ends up happening, right? I'm just making up the numbers. And the stock's going to tank. Like we've been through this already with many stocks. This has happened to Tesla many times as well. I think that's a great opportunity for us. If that's the reason the stock tanks, if we go back to 40 on that, that's great. But
that's what I'm saying. You say that analysts are stupid for not adjusting for this. I would say that they're brilliant and geniuses, because if you look at institutional, like the rush to buy Palantir is like outrageous. I mean, the institutional ownership is like to the moon, right?
But do you think the institutions know that they're going to have a muted gap net income gain in Q4?
Well, I think
I don't think any of them know.
Look. Okay, my point is this. I think that they are very well aware that Palantir might incur a hit, and I don't think if they don't adjust for this, I think it's intentional. I don't think they're stupid. I think they want to buy just as much as we do. You know,
the analyst from Jefferies, Brent Thrill. I don't know if he's adjusting for this. I don't know if freaking Citibank is adjusting for this.
Okay. How about this? Put it in the chat. Are you hoping that they adjust for this or not? I'm hoping that they don't, and we get that dip, baby. That's what I'm hoping for. But yeah, to the point, I don't think they're stupid. I think they're aware. If they don't adjust for it, I think it's deliberately not adjusting for it to get a normalized share price again, because like this kind of unhealthy to go into in infinity, because when then it finally does drop, I think it might be just equally unjustified to the bottom if you don't get some sense of normalcy in the stock. So I think if they don't adjust, I think it's deliberate.
Yeah.
Look, how many analysts have you seen talking about this SARS before this moment?
Zero.
Arnie.
Literally Arnie. Arnie actually read the report. I sent you the report and I didn't even read the full report.
And like, I believe like Mariana is the only one literally taking the 10K.
Do we think Dan Ives knows about this? Be honest.
I think no.
So that's my point. Like, right?
I think Mariana knows because he's one of those analysts, obsessive analysts like me that likes to read every effing sentence that there is, because even slight changes can be important. Do you remember Dominic noticed there was a line, like a simple line in the cost of revenue saying, well, we got a better gross margin because we closed a very big deal, essentially promising a lot of computing power. It's like, wait a second, like this is the most bullish thing ever. Like nobody apart from Dominic saw that. Okay, so there are these moments where you have a sense that, oh, this information is valuable. And then you check the analyst reports, you realize even the top analysts are not really taking care of it. Mariana noticed that. She put that as a waiver to say, oh, if the stock drops, at least I told you. Nobody else told you. Yeah. But the others are not really taking care of that. Because, look, we're talking about like $1 billion cash potentially disappearing if all this stuff is executed. Now, as investors, that could be like our golden opportunity, but at least we need to be aware of.
And the 1 billion cash, you're saying that's how much the SARS will cost them?
If all the SARS are executed, and I'm not 100% sure they can be all executed like instantly, because that depends on the vesting period of these SARS.
Yeah.
But assuming like a 70 as the maximum value, and there are like $44 million SARS multiplied by 20, which is the maximum value of each SAR, you get not that far from 1 billion.
Well, what if that's the reason it's not going to be a big deal? What if there's only a third of that actually gets executed because these employees haven't been there long enough to do it?
Well, probably you still need to recognize the expense,
okay,
but not that high. Like that's why like accounting is weird. Like look, already understanding the accounting of your own country is a mess. Then every country has its own accounting rules. So already when I see an Italian company, I need to be aware there are ways with which like on accounting wise stuff are counted differently. So that's why like on the more accounting side, like I get the principles, but I don't know how exactly they are implemented. If there is one thing that I can say, what worries me is typically when you read an analyst report, what is the way they talk about stuff that could happen or not? Like you typically see the wording being like could, should, right? At least that's how I'm also trained. Like I was always like, no, I'm deterministic because I'm convinced on what I'm saying. And my boss was like, no. You never, ever say will. Because if that doesn't happen, you're destroyed. Always use like could, should, maybe, but what Mariana says, however, the 120 million SAR expense will result in unprofitable GAAP operating income. Will. But that is the scary thing for me, at least. analysts are never deterministic. Their job is to cover their ass and get
Yeah.
fees.
This is new. I think this was the most important thing we found out. This is why this community is amazing, because we get to find out stuff like this. I mean, if there is, I mean, it would explain the insider selling to me. Like maybe they know, hey, we're gonna have a pretty nasty expense. No one's gonna care if they were told. Obviously, the company has communicated this through their 10Ks and 10Qs, so this is out there. It's public. The analysts, I don't think Louis De Palma is gonna take this into account, or Rishi. So the headline's going to be Palantir misses EPS. And it could happen, dude. Robinhood was having the best run of like the past couple months. And then October 30th, 25% down in 10 hours. And everyone forgets about like the excitement, momentum, narrative because they missed their numbers. Fuck these guys. They missed their numbers. We have a better place to put our money. And Robinhood was trading a $28 billion market cap with a $5 billion in cash. Palantir's at $150 billion, So I guess this is one of the things we have to think about. If they miss any numbers, what the street will react to.
I just think it's funny you said, I don't think Louis De Palma or Rishi are accounting for this. I think they're like taking it and doubling it and sending it to the next one, because like if you look at their price targets, I think they have like some meteorite hitting Earth factored into their evaluation and stuff.
Okay, so let's end on this conversation because I think this discussion will be important. Let's say Palantir does tank for whatever reason in 2025. How do you think people will react to that? The community, the player haters, as Alex Karp calls them, long-term investors.
Please hold that thought. That's a great question, and we should end on that. I just want to ask you. You mentioned about insider selling, I think like 3 times now throughout this hour.
Yeah.
What is the current like insider selling status at? Because I don't track it. It's not like an input into my intrinsic valuation model, so I completely ignore it. I know that they've been selling in the single digits. I know they've been selling in the 10s, the 20s, the 30s, 40s, 50s. I know they're always selling. So what's different this time that makes you like, I think this is why insiders are selling? Can you like give us the scoop?
I mean, I don't care that much about insider selling either, but Carper sold about close to $2 billion in the past couple months. So let's call it $1 billion a month. If I'm not wrong, I could be slightly off, be 1.7, 1.8, but like that's a lot of selling, dude. And there's no blame in the world from me to him to sell. I mean, dude, but he's the reason Palantir's here, right? He's been here for 20 years, all that stuff. So, but I'm just thinking logically, do you sell $2 billion worth of something?
Okay. So the way
if your financial advisors aren't telling you, hey, Carp, it's time to take some off the table. You're 56 years old. You've been here for 20 years. Take some profits.
Okay, but I understand the absolute value increases compared to when like Palantir was trading at $6 because the stock appreciated so much. So each share that's being sold is a lot higher. But is the actual share count that's being sold a lot higher than in the past?
I mean, yeah. Okay. Yeah. And also at $6, it was cheap, but they were just selling because they had their shares at 2 cents. At 60, we know it's expensive, like objectively. And the acceleration of the growth in the shares that they're selling. Again, no problem that they're selling shares, but it's something that we have to analyze about, why. And long term, is it going to matter if they sold in 2024? No. In 10 years from now, it's not going to matter. But short term, maybe it helps us understand things.
Okay, so sorry about that excursion. I thought there was like some insider like dumping deluxe, but it seems like it's just in line with the past, a bit higher. Okay, we can move on to the last topic. Sorry to interrupt.
Look, insider selling is like a feature of Palantir. This happened also during the bottom. We all know, we all remember who were traumatized, but at the bottom, oh no, even insiders are selling. It's like, oh no, please.
Yeah, that was a gut punch. At $7 when they were fucking selling, that was a gut punch.
So, and as always, we always shared here at Weekly, okay, yes, like optically, it sucks. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really change the substance. A lot of that sales could be just tax driven because when you receive from as far as we know, like this or even the management is not paid like very much in cash. It is paid very much in stock options and shares. Okay, so when you receive these shares are heavily taxed, like 50% or something, right? So what you do is, as soon as you receive them, you sell them so that essentially you have like some cash. Even just to keep the shares, like you need to sell a part, because as soon as you receive these shares, you're taxed. So unless you have like an infinite bank account, every time you receive these shares, you need to sell part of them. So that is a feature of how Palantir operates. It wants to have like employees and management very, very aligned with the future prospects of the company. So very stock-based component. But like for instance, from this chart here, that I can't guarantee like the accuracy on, but I think it looks like in reason like aligned with what we are currently seeing. Like there is now an anomalous selling around here.
Yeah, it's not just for taxes, you know.
And in terms of ownership, like I personally struggle to record like all the sequence ownership of Palantir shares owned by Carp, but because for instance this number doesn't look right.
He has 54 million shares left, 48 million Class A, 6 million Class B. I don't know what total percentage he's sold. I have to do the math on it, but he has about 50 million left.
Like I tried to ask the Perplexity, but how can I say? Let's show that AI is useful somehow. Like show me Alex Carp per.
Keith says, would they not use their cash hoard to pay the SARs? They would, Keith, but that means that would decrease the amount of cash they have, and that would also decrease their net interest income because that cash is not taking up money. So that's the problem here. That's why the gap estimates could go down. Yeah, Perplexity doesn't know shit, bro. Because it has to analyze thousands of SEC documents to be able to actually give us the
Perplexity is the one that made the agreement with Court Air.
That's just transcript. That's just summarizing earnings calls, right?
Okay, so in like percentage-wise, like I think that, like the B shares are untouched, but I remember I saw like the A shares, like the one that we also get, that like that he reduced a lot of them. Now
I think he sold like 20 million of those, basically, roundabout,
to get like a 1.5 billion or whatever. So, and there is also like a piece of stock options that we don't know exactly. At least I don't know exactly how much he get. That could be exercised. That boom makes that number up again. So let's exclude that. But I think like at this point, I can't really think these are all automatic sales from taxi events. Personally, like here,
no way. Yeah,
we see like this very big stuff, and I absolutely agree with you. Like imagine I'm the financial advisor of Carp. It's like, I know you're mad. I love you, but regardless of how convinced you are of the company, like just secure your financial how can I say, your financial, not freedom, but safety forever.
Oh, he would say, dude, it's fucking expensive. Sell. Like that. Carp's probably sitting in a room with 10 different advisors who are all looking at him like it's worth 150 billion and you guys are barely making $500 million in profit. Half of that is fucking from treasury bills. The market's giving you the best opportunity of your life to exit right now. Take some off the top. Now, for retail investors, if you don't have 70 million shares, you might not need to do the same type of risk mitigation. But for Carp, I mean, it probably makes sense to do some risk mitigation.
What is Carp using his money for? He's like living a frugal life in some cabin. Like, what the fuck is gonna need $1 billion for anyway?
Do you know how many barns there are in the world?
Okay, let's move on. It's a boring conversation. No one cares about shares.
Yeah, actually, let's do this last. This is more substantive, this last conversation. So let's just do this NHS segment. Arnie found this article from the Financial Times of Palantir's progress with the NHS. We got this deal September 2023. We went through 2 years of hell to get the deal, but the deal was achieved. And there's good results. We're not going to go through all the specific things, but different trusts, which are hospitals in the NHS, are seeing progress. And Lewis Mosley, who is the head of Palantir's UK business, actually retweeted Arnie and he further shared a ton of different stats. So broad question here, Arnie, we'll start with you, is what do you think this deal means in terms of results, and could Palantir get more socialized healthcare systems to work with?
I believe it will be not that easy, but this stuff is resonating with people. Like when you read this stuff, on one side you have dumb people just repeating again, oh, but Palantir is a concern to our private security and stuff. But any rational person in the world would actually read this stuff and say, look at this, like 37% reduction in the number of days patient remained in the hospital after they were ready to go home. Like, that's a very strong number. Like, that speaks inefficiencies solved by software. NHS England found that host trust using the NHS FDP, so Palantir, treated on average 114 more inpatient in theater every month after introducing the tool. So it's like these numbers help solving the core issues of the NHS, which is a common problem that affects all healthcare systems. In Italy, we have like a very different system from the US. It is closer to the UK one, even that UK one, from my understanding, is a little bit mixed. But in Italy, all the healthcare system is entirely subsidized by taxes. There is no health insurance, because when you pay taxes, we pay a lot of them, like all the taxes already pay for the hospital. So there is also the private sector, but that's a private, like that's another stuff. And in Italy, we all complain, oh, the healthcare system is so slow and inefficient and stuff. But at the end of the day, we don't pay for that. And overall is not that bad. But that screams of opportunity for literally every European country, for potentially every smaller hospital and even private clinics that could be interested in deploying this. And I'm learning from a friend working for a medtech company that even for medtech companies, this could scream opportunity, because what they do is actually selling software to hospitals to actually manage their operations. So having this resonance on the Financial Times claiming, oh, Palantir is succeeding what they were promising on this very big controversial deal, then Luis showing even more examples of Palantir helping essentially performing 10% more surgeries, 12% increase in theater utilization, waiting times for urgent suspected cancer case referrals reduced by 4 days. Like, this stuff is like the golden dream of every potential hospital. So it's early to say. These things take a lot of time. But the fact that Palantir won this contract, and after how much time has passed? Like 1 year already since the NHS?
Yeah, just about.
Like after 1 year, it is already showing big numbers, big results. Like, that screams of huge advertising that could help unlock further governments, further private hospitals, and all related stuff. So the opportunity here is massive. Personally, like, I think healthcare, if this really like spins, could alone help the US commercial business like to keep growing this fast. Like, previously we were talking about the government and the commercial side growing like 30%, but it is fair to recognize that right now US commercial is growing 50%. What if this 50% is sustained or even gets more momentum and it goes like to 70%? Like, it's not impossible to exclude. Obviously, it's very optimistic for the level of information that we have from outside the company. Is very, very hard to get a sense on that. So we'd better be careful. But I believe like there is a part of a probability tree that could bring us to a world where even this 30% is completely demolished. But it's still like a small tree, like a small part of this probability tree. But personally, as investor, I don't want to be completely anchored on that. I want to be exposed to that. But I think it is fair to say there is a world where Palantir could grow like 40-50% for a long period of time if events like this, the NHS, the success in Ukraine, in Israel, like really resonate to people, and then you have like a rush to Palantir. As we had seen the rush to Bitcoin, the rush to Nvidia, it is possibly true that we could see a rush to Palantir.
Okay,
Amir?
so yeah, I think I won't get into like the details about the actual results. I think the main point here is that Palantir is proving its usefulness because Palantir received heavy public backlash when they were running for the NHS deal. I mean, if you guys remember, there was a Soros-backed publication making it their mission to ensure that the NHS deal doesn't happen at all. And when it actually did, they deleted their social media presence like completely. Like I even forgot their name by now. Like, do you guys remember? Like, doesn't even matter.
It was called Open
Fox
Society or something.
Yeah. So they were Soros backed, and like they made it like their mission to like dog on Palantir and spread misinformation. Now, I think slowly but surely, the irrational critics who voice their opinion about Palantir can't really dispute the results and numbers. I mean, numbers are objective, and their criticism is rooted in like fake news, as our 47th would say. However, like more than just convincing British citizens, I think it also serves as a good bed for like Europe as a whole, which has been really performing like poorly ever since Palantir went public. Like I made a video about this a week ago or so, where I talked about Palantir's international numbers, and Europe has been really underperforming ever since the first earnings call. During the first ever earnings call, and then like for like every consecutive earnings call since then, Palantir has talked about EU being like a really bad market for them. Like Europe does not want to participate in the AI revolution, Europe this, Europe that, like all these reasons. And people in the chat, I wonder how many people know about this, because I don't think people care to look too much beyond like all the fantastic growth numbers. But sequentially, for 3 quarters in a row, non-US revenue has been negative. Did you guys know that? Well,
yeah,
it has been. And minus 7% for Q3. Now, during the earnings call, they said, well, this is attributed to Europe.
No, they didn't just say that. Karp basically said, fuck you, Europe. That's quite, I mean, not
and he's
literally,
been saying
but
that for years. Like they've had this problem for so long. I think this actually starting to get benefits publicized in the region, because it's heavily regulated, especially surrounding AI. Not to mention, like, you have the most regulated like public healthcare institution like in the UK. If Palantir can perform there, it really opens up doors to the rest of the EU market, I think, just from like the government segment. And then sooner or later, like on the commercial side, they will have to start participating if they want to stay relevant. I mean, I think I read that EU is expected to have 0% GDP growth as a whole. I mean, that's horrific. And if they don't start participating in this AI revolution sooner or later, I mean, Europe is not going to be as prosperous as people imagine in their mind. So sooner or later, Palantir will start to get a piece of that cake. Now, it's really important to actually start to show like all the efficiencies. I mean, me and you guys and the chat, we watch AIP cons. We see the results of implementing Palantir software pretty frequently. But these guys, they really need to wake up. And I think getting publications like this from the NHS really helps Palantir to prove that point on the wider scale within Europe. And all the heavy criticism that they were getting for like, they're gonna steal all our data, let's they made protests at the offices, stuff like that, sending threats and all this crazy stuff to Palantir. I think they're all being proven wrong now, and I think that's really, really good for Palantir on a whole. Now you can go and analyze the specific results, but I think like the bigger takeaway is what this might mean for the future of the Europe market as a whole, because it's been really bad ever since going public. Like, this is not new. This has been like this ever since going public.
Yeah, I would agree. Look, my analysis on this NHS stuff is pretty simple. If we can actually give the NHS real results, and it seems like it's been a year and we're producing real results, now over the next 5 years, we're going to have to produce like serious results, then I think Brazil, Canada, Germany, Sweden, all these socialized healthcare systems potentially might give Palantir a call. They're going to give the UK a call. They're like, hey, did Palantir work? The NHS needs to say yes. Then they need to call CARP. They say, can you do the same thing for us? And maybe that's going to be a lot of deals.
Imagine literally that each healthcare system has its own peculiarity, but at the end of the day, the core business is exactly the same. You take patients in, you need to be very efficient in providing how you call, like, cures, like
care, care,
and send them home. There is a healthcare problem, there is a logistic problem, and Palantir can help making all the processes smoother. And since it is already doing this stuff at scale, completely integrated, literally, like, you can see how wrong are people thinking that the TAM Palantir has on the government side is limited. Look, I've been studying a little bit this company called Viva, which is like a Salesforce / operating system just for healthcare. And they have like a 20 billion TAM target. And it's like, okay, like, it means that Palantir can have like that TAM as well in healthcare alone. But Palantir has like 40 verticals. So it's like literally become like everywhere software is deployed, Palantir can get there. Even inside the most tech-savvy companies like Anduril, as the new video of Palantir developers showed. Like, imagine, even the top military tech company founded by almost all ex-Palantir needs a Palantir to become faster and managing their supply chain algo demands. Like, that is a powerful signal that tells you, like, literally Palantir can go, I think, everywhere. If it can get traction and increasing momentum, that 30% is not unreasonable to think that could be smashed. Again, as investors, that's something we want to be exposed, but not to be like too reliant on.
I agree. Last two super chats, then we'll get out of here. Christian, thank you for the $5. This is for Amir spitting facts. This guy's speaking more sanely than most analysts on TV. Amir, I will have to send you these $5. But better than $5 is you guys can go to Amir's YouTube and subscribe to him there. I'm going to put that in the chat. So please make sure to subscribe to him there.
And please don't call him a creator.
Yeah.
I'm not a creator, guys. No.
Very long, in-depth videos on valuation. I mean, Amir has developed a niche for himself. No one is doing valuations on YouTube the way Amir is doing, specifically for Palantir as well. So definitely think if you want to be updated on the numbers, you have to be following Amir. And then Rob, thank you for the $10 super chat. The relationship between Thiel, Trump, Vance, and Musk, Doge is a key factor in pumping to 75 beyond and may continue to do so for the next 4 years. I think next episode we'll talk more about this, even though we touched on it last week. But yeah, if Doge starts giving out more software contracts for efficiency, Palantir should get some of them.
Well,
and that should help us.
Perfectly fits into. We can't really know how the future will unfold because what if these relationships Palantir has with these guys that are now on the top can help break the wall for some other prime contracts of the size of not millions dollars, but $1 billion. Like, that could change the numbers. Like, how we can know that? No, we can just follow the story, grasp like a little pieces here and there, trying to connect the dots, understanding that probabilities change, and have fun together, making and watching Palantir Weekly.
And shout out to CodeStrap. I will be doing a live recording with him 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Pacific. He went to Palantir's first ever DevCon. So I'll be talking to him about all the progress Palantir is making in terms of the developer community. CodeStrap, for those that don't know, CodeStrap was the first YouTuber Palantir really interacted with back in 2022 because he kept saying, hey, we need to create this developer community. He's a developer himself. And then Palantir was like, all right, why don't you help us? And so he's been working with the company for years now. So that'll be a good recap on what's happening with Palantir DevCon and his current thoughts about the company. All right, that's it. Any last thoughts, Amir?
Thank you everyone for watching, and thank you for the nice comment. Amit can keep the $5. He deserves it more than me. So,
Arnie, any last thoughts?
I think we covered everything. It's just interesting to see how psychology plays a big role on top of the numbers, because there are the numbers, but in this moment in particular, we see how psychology can affect the stock, but also psychology can affect the business, because Palantir itself has this product already for years, obviously developing also new products, but it is the perception that now you need Palantir that could change completely the numbers. And if there is one moment where the company had this opportunity to really break through the noise, the prejudice, is exactly this one. So it is interesting to see the developments as an investor, but also as a passionate scholar, like a student of the company. I think, remember when we were talking about MBAs have all these books of strategy, but at the end of the day, all that is trash. The real strategy is built right now when you see and study this stuff, because even if we are super crazy nerds, super obsessive on the company, we realize how often we are wrong.
Yeah,
we're mostly right, to be honest. but even that sentence that Karp said, we don't care of maximizing the customer number, we just care of making the product deeper, that is against what we were thinking.
It was, I think at $15, Arnie was the first person that I really heard talk about this idea that it's not about number of customers, it's about value per customer. And that's why I think you were explaining what does it mean to not have a pricing strategy, right? Because that's when Karp said that quote, and Bloomberg was like, this guy's fucking crazy, he doesn't have a pricing strategy. And I remember Arnie on the weekly a year and a half ago was like, no, that's actually very smart to not have a pricing strategy, just deliver value and the money will come. And the money has come. Pretty incredible stuff. Thank you everybody for being here. We'll see you guys next Friday, and we'll keep going from there.
Thank you.
Bye everyone. Have a good one.